Disasters killed about 250,000 people, affected more than 200 million lives. The total economic cost was a stunning $180 billion US, which is twice the average annual economic losses of the past 7 years. And the region of Asia and the Pacific, which I humbly represent, bore much of the brunt, accounting for more than 80% of the global loss of life. As a country and people at risk, we need to rethink our approach to pursuing and protecting our development from the regressive impacts of disasters, along the priorities of the Yogo Framework for Action and the recommendations of the Global Assessment Report. Beyond the respective countries, the world must act more swiftly, more wisely, and more decisively to seize and reduce disaster risks more effectively. The challenge in politics and governance is persuasively clear. Fundamentally, we must all understand that our socio-economic vulnerability depends much on the choices we make and the actions we take.
That those who are most vulnerable, who suffer the most from the adverse effects of climate change and have contributed the least to climate change, are empowered and enabled in terms of capacity and finance to fight back. This necessitates not just enhanced ambition, but the steely resolve to act now. But we are running out of time. We have to do both the difficult and the impossible at once. Only then can we truly say that we have fulfilled our obligations to future generations, because only then can we leave a world where life can continue to exist.
Urban poverty, weak governance, ecosystems decline, vulnerable rural livelihoods turbocharged by climate change have altogether created enormous risks in our crisis, in our cities, in our communities, and have put the poor at greater peril. These risks will constantly challenge our human capacity to cope, imperil all development gains, and keep the Millennium Development Goals even more elusive. We cannot continue using Mother Earth as collateral in our economic games of chance. Today's state of socio-economic affairs should not be business as usual. It is high time for the world to slow down these contemporary development practices.
The urgency of action, unequivocally, is most pronounced today than ever. United climate actions must now happen in an ambitious scale, scope, and speed. The Philippines, for its part, has been constant in its climate leadership and commitment to act on the climate crisis and the climate emergency. As a parliamentarian for over 2 decades, I personally led innovative policy and strategy development for climate action in my country. We've mainstreamed climate change adaptation and mitigation and disaster risk reduction in our annual budget, because climate change cuts across all development concerns. The Philippines has also led in climate legislation for over 20 years with our Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, Ecological Solid Waste Management, Renewable Energy, Climate Change Act, People's Survival Fund, National Protected Areas, and Green Jobs Act. We also increased our excise tax on coal importation, and recently we enacted our Energy Efficiency and Conservation Act. Despite my country's insignificant survival emissions of 0.3%, 1/3 of 1%, and the burden of prevalent poverty and recurring economic losses from climate change impacts, the Philippines, constrained as we are in means and capacities, has been doing all it can to make a difference in responding to the global climate emergency. It is in this context that we urge developed nations, country parties, to rise to the 1.5 degrees climate challenge and uphold climate justice. Deliver on your commitments in the Paris Agreement. Lead in deep and drastic cuts in carbon emissions. Deliver the finance and investments for innovative adaptation solutions in our local communities. The time for action has long passed. Now is a time to catch up. Now is a time to translate words into actions. Let the era of procrastination, inaction, and apathy end as well. Let this end present a new beginning for humanity, a new chance to rise to the climate challenge, this time with a renewed commitment and a stronger resolve.
Ultimately, the earth, our home, is giving us a final exam today. If we pass it with courage, conviction, and with innovation, our children and our children's children will look back with gratitude. However, Mr. Speaker, if we fail, our generation will be harshly judged on it.